The massive crystal chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with quiet conversations as hundreds of alien representatives took their seats. Today was supposed to be another routine session discussing trade routes and mining rights. Nobody expected what was about to happen. Ambassador Park Jin-ho walked slowly to the center podium, his black suit standing out against the colorful robes and natural shells of the alien council members. Behind him, his assistant Lee Min-suk carried a single datapad and looked unusually serious. The chamber fell quiet as Jin-ho activated the translation system. His voice came out clear and calm through the speakers that reached every corner of the huge room. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," he began, looking around at the hundreds of different alien faces watching him. "I stand before you today to deliver an important message from the United Earth Government." Council leader Thexera leaned forward on her crystal throne. Her 3 purple eyes focused on the human ambassador with mild interest. Humans rarely had anything important to say during these meetings. Effective immediately, Jin-ho continued, humanity formally withdraws from the Galactic Council and all associated treaties, trade agreements, and military partnerships. The reaction was instant. Tentacles waved in shock. Chittering sounds filled the air. Bioluminescent patches on various aliens flashed bright colors of surprise. But underneath the shock, something else was visible on many faces: relief. "Ambassador Park," Thexera said, her voice carrying a hint of satisfaction she tried to hide. "Surely this decision is premature. Perhaps your species simply needs more time to adapt to galactic civilization." Jin-ho's expression did not change. "Our decision is final, Council Leader. For 47 standard years, humanity has been a member of this alliance. We have shared our scientific discoveries with all member species. We have provided military support during border conflicts. We have offered diplomatic solutions to countless disputes." He paused, letting his words sink in. "And for 47 years, our contributions have been dismissed as primitive. Our technology has been called crude but functional. Our diplomatic suggestions have been labeled as overly simple. Our military assistance has been deemed unnecessary and aggressive." General Krex of the Hegemony uncoiled his long serpentine body and spoke up. "Because they were human. Your species lacks the sophistication needed for true galactic citizenship. Your methods are brutish and your technology is basic." Several other council members made sounds of agreement. The Ethereal Collective's representative, Scientist Vexhai, added, "Perhaps it is better this way. Humanity can return to its single world and develop at its own pace." Ambassador Kim So-young, who served as humanity's military liaison, stood up for the first time during the session. "You are probably right," she said simply. "We do not wish to burden the Council with our inadequate contributions any longer." The chamber filled with the alien equivalent of murmurs and whispers. This was going better than many had hoped. The humans were leaving voluntarily, saving everyone the awkwardness of asking them to step down from advanced discussions. "Very well," Thexera declared, unable to keep the satisfaction from her voice. "Humanity may withdraw to its home system. Naturally, the Council will need to reclaim all territories, stations, and resources that were granted to your species during your membership." "Of course," Jin-ho replied smoothly. "We will begin evacuating our colonies and outposts immediately. All Council property will be returned in perfect condition." Science Counselor Vexhai leaned over to his aide and whispered, "Finally, we can pursue proper scientific advancement without their interference. Their simple methods have been holding back real progress for decades." The aide nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, sir. Imagine what we can accomplish without having to explain every advanced concept in terms they can understand." As the formal withdrawal was recorded and processed, Jin-ho made one final statement. "The evacuation of all human personnel and equipment from Council space will be completed within 6 months. We thank the Council for the opportunity to participate in galactic affairs." The session ended with what could only be described as barely contained celebration among the alien representatives. As they filed out of the chamber, conversations buzzed with excitement about finally being free from human limitations. Only a few observers noticed a strange calm on the faces of the human delegation. Gene Ho and his team packed their materials with unusual efficiency, their expressions completely neutral. There was no anger, no disappointment, no pleading for reconsideration. As Gene Ho walked toward the exit, he quietly activated his personal communicator and sent a brief coded message. The text was simple: Operation Homecoming authorized. Begin Phase 1. Within hours, human colonies across the galaxy received the same message. Ships began launching from every human settlement, carrying people and equipment toward the unexplored regions beyond the galactic rim. The evacuation was orderly, thorough, and strangely final. The council members returned to their homeworlds, already making plans for the improvements they would implement without human interference. None of them noticed that their communication networks had started experiencing small glitches. None of them realized that certain backup systems were no longer functioning quite as well as they had the day before. The humans were leaving just as requested, but they were taking more with them than anyone imagined. 6 months had passed since the humans left the Galactic Council, and most alien species were celebrating their newfound freedom. Trade moved faster, without human bureaucracy. Military decisions were made without human concerns about civilian casualties. Scientific research proceeded without human questions about ethics and safety. But small problems were starting to appear. Chief Engineer Quextar of the Vorthani stared at his computer screen in frustration. The quantum communication array that connected his world to the rest of the galaxy was only working at half power. The system had been perfect for years, but now it kept having strange errors. "When did the humans last work on the station?" he asked his assistant. "About 8 months ago, sir. They said it was routine maintenance." Quextar clicked his mandibles in annoyance. "Contact the hegemony. We need new stabilizer cores for the communication system." The reply came back quickly, and it was not good news. The hegemony was having the same problems with their communication networks. Worse, they did not have any spare stabilizer cores. They had always ordered them from human factories. "What do you mean? They made all the stabilizer cores?" Quextar demanded during a video call with his hegemony counterpart. "These are standard galactic components." "That is what I thought too," replied Engineer Vexcole, his serpentine form coiled nervously around his control chair. "But when I checked our records, every stabilizer core in our network came from human manufacturers. We never made our own." Similar conversations were happening across the galaxy. On the ethereal homeworld, scientist Prime Zethera discovered that 3 important experiments had failed because they could not get rare isotopes that only came from Earth's moon. The isotopes were supposed to be common and easy to make, according to human documentation. But no other world had ever successfully produced them. "How did they make it look so simple?" she muttered, reading production notes for the 100th time. The process seemed straightforward, but every attempt to recreate it failed. The most worrying reports came from the border systems. Captain Vorth was reviewing patrol logs when he noticed a disturbing pattern. Communication blackouts were becoming more frequent in areas that had always been perfectly reliable. Long-range sensors were developing blind spots. Navigation beacons were slowly drifting out of their correct positions. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "the Outer Rim monitoring station has not checked in for 3 days." "Send a repair ship," Vorth ordered, trying to ignore the worried feeling growing in his stomach. The repair ship returned with strange news. The monitoring station was completely intact, but totally empty. All the human workers had vanished, taking with them small components that the aliens had never known were there. Backup systems that should have activated automatically had somehow been disabled during the evacuation. In the council chambers, these incidents were still being dismissed as minor problems. Councillor Thexera addressed the assembly with confidence that sounded less convincing each day. "Fellow council members, these temporary disruptions are normal. We are simply adjusting to our independence from human interference. Our superior technology will adapt and overcome these small issues." But privately, urgent requests were flooding in from across council space. Components that had been easily available for decades were suddenly impossible to find. Manufacturing processes that had worked perfectly were now producing broken or inferior products. Trade routes that had operated smoothly were experiencing mysterious delays, and equipment failures. Most disturbing of all, the few humans still in council space were quietly disappearing. Scientists, engineers, and diplomatic staff who were supposed to finish their assignments were instead submitting polite resignation letters and leaving empty offices behind. Dr. Yang Haijin was the last human researcher at the Galactic Scientific Institute. Her Vorthani colleague, Dr. Flexera, barely looked at her final report before filing it away with the other paperwork. "Good riddance," he muttered after she left. "Finally, we can do real science without their primitive interference." 3 months later, he would desperately search for that report, realizing too late that it contained critical warnings about system failures that were already spreading across the galaxy. The pattern was becoming clear to those who looked carefully. Every system, every network, every process that had worked smoothly for decades was slowly breaking down. And in every case, the breakdown could be traced back to the absence of some small component, some minor process, some simple maintenance routine that humans had quietly performed. Trade Coordinator Vextar was the first to put the pieces together. He had been tracking the economic disruptions across council space, trying to find the common factor that was causing so many problems at once. "They did not just leave," he told his assistant in a quiet, frightened voice. "They were holding everything together. All these years we thought they were learning from us, but they were actually keeping our civilization running." His assistant looked confused. "But sir, human technology is primitive. Everyone knows that." Vextar stared at his data screens, watching his red warning indicators spread across the galactic trade network like a disease. "Maybe," he said slowly, "we were wrong about what primitive means." The silence where human voices used to be was growing louder every day. And in that silence, the true scope of humanity's contributions was becoming terrifyingly clear. The crisis began on a normal Tuesday morning on Krexer Prime, the industrial heart of the hegemony. Chief Systems Administrator Vexcol was drinking his morning stimulant when every screen in the control center suddenly flashed bright red. "What is happening?" he demanded, his long serpentine body rising up from his control station. "Sir, the entire planetary manufacturing system just shut down," his assistant stammered, his scales turning pale with fear. "Primary fusion reactors, power distribution networks, backup generators. Everything is failing at the same time." Vexcol slithered quickly to the main console and tried to access the emergency controls. Nothing worked. Worse, the diagnostic systems were showing error messages he had never seen before. Human authentication protocol required. Access denied. "Human authentication?" he hissed in confusion. "We removed all human access codes months ago when they left." But the terrible truth was becoming clear. Deep inside the system programming, buried under layers of hegemony code, were human-designed control programs that had quietly managed critical functions for decades. When the human authentication systems could not connect to their home servers on Earth, the programs had safely shut down all equipment to prevent damage. The same disaster was happening across the galaxy. On the ethereal homeworld, the planetary weather control system suddenly stopped working when its human-made quantum processors finally burned out after months without maintenance. Massive storms that had not been seen for centuries began forming in the upper atmosphere. Scientist Prime Zethera stood in her laboratory, looking at equipment that had once seemed incredibly advanced but now revealed itself to be dependent on human technology. Her species' greatest achievement, the consciousness transfer device, needed special bioneural processors that could only be grown in Earth's unique ecosystem. "How did we not see this?" she whispered to her assistant, staring at 50 years of human technical reports that she had filed away without reading because they seemed too simple and boring. The crisis reached its peak when the Vorthani's main trade hub experienced a catastrophic navigation failure. The massive space station, which handled 70% of the galaxy's commerce, suddenly could not guide incoming ships safely through its traffic control system. The quantum positioning algorithms that made everything work had been designed and maintained by humans for decades. Within 6 hours, 17 cargo ships crashed into each other in the approach corridor. The economic shock wave spread through council space as trade routes shut down across the entire galaxy. Council leader Thexera stood before an emergency assembly, her three eyes darting nervously between her notes and the increasingly angry representatives filling the chamber. "Members of the council," she began, her voice shaking slightly, "we are experiencing some setbacks in our infrastructure. These problems are more widespread than we initially thought." "Setbacks!" roared General Krex, his massive serpentine form trembling with rage. "Half my fleet cannot navigate beyond our home system. Our weapon systems are locked in maintenance mode. What did those humans do to us?" Dr. Yoon Tae-min, one of the last human engineers still in council space, had been listening from a visitor's section. Finally, he stood up and asked for permission to speak. "Honored council members," he said in a quiet voice, "we did nothing to you. We simply stopped doing things for you." The silence that followed was complete and terrifying. "For 47 years," Tae-min continued, "humanity has been quietly maintaining, upgrading, and improving council systems. Not because you asked us to, but because we saw problems and we fixed them. It is what we do." He activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy's infrastructure in horrible detail. Red markers showed failing systems, yellow showed critical problems, and green showed stable operations. The pattern was unmistakable. Green markers were clustered around former human colonies, while red markers spread like an infection through areas controlled only by council species. "Every system, every network, every process," Tae-min explained. "We made it work better, more efficient, more reliable, more elegant. We shared our improvements freely because we thought we were partners working together." His voice carried sadness now. "But you never wanted partners. You wanted servants who would stay quiet and do the work while you took credit. So we are giving you exactly what you asked for, a galaxy without human interference." As security officers moved to escort him out, Tae-min's final words echoed through the chamber. "You have maybe 6 months before everything collapses completely. We tried to build you a better future. Now you will have to manage with the one you chose for yourselves." The chamber erupted in panicked discussions as representatives realized the scope of the disaster. Systems that had worked perfectly for decades were failing because humans had been quietly maintaining them. Technology that seemed simple had actually been incredibly sophisticated, just designed to be easy for other species to use. Trade Coordinator Flexera was frantically reviewing economic data when he made the most frightening discovery of all. "The humans were not just maintaining our systems," he announced at the emergency session. "They were subsidizing our entire economy. 90% of our profitable trade routes were only profitable because humans were covering the hidden costs." As the reports continued to pour in from across council space, one fact became undeniably clear. The aliens had not been the advanced civilization they thought they were. For nearly half a century, humans had been the foundation holding galactic society together, and now that foundation was gone. The emergency meeting had been going for 3 straight days. Council members who usually slept in shifts were now staying awake around the clock, desperately trying to find solutions to problems that grew worse every hour. Admiral Cork stood in front of the huge holographic display, his insect-like mandibles clicking nervously as he gave his report to the exhausted assembly. "We have sent search fleets to every known human colony in council space. All 17 fleet groups have returned with the same news." "Tell us," Council Leader Thexera demanded, her 3 eyes red from lack of sleep. "Every single human settlement has been completely evacuated. Not one person left behind. Not one piece of equipment forgotten. They even removed the backup power cells from emergency systems that we did not know existed." The news hit the chamber like a physical blow. Dr. Zontar from the Science Division stepped forward, his glowing patches flickering weakly with exhaustion and fear. "It gets worse," he said quietly. "The evacuations were not random. They removed specific parts and components that our systems needed to work, while leaving everything else untouched. This means they knew exactly which pieces were critical to our civilization." The horrible truth was sinking in. The humans had not just left. They had carefully removed themselves from council society like surgeons removing vital organs, leaving behind bodies that looked fine, but could not survive. "What about the outer territories?" Thexera asked desperately. "The mining colonies at the edge of known space." Captain Vexera of the Long-Range Scouts activated her own report. The images that appeared made everyone in the chamber gasp with fear. "We found evidence of massive construction projects in the Galactic Rim sectors," she said, her voice tight with controlled panic. "Our long-range sensors detected energy signatures from industrial operations on a scale we have never seen before." The display showed the galaxy's edge, where mysterious structures were scattered across star systems that had been empty just months before. The constructions were enormous, some larger than entire moons, but their purpose was completely unknown. "Did our scouts make contact?" General Krex demanded, his serpentine form coiled with tension. "No, sir." Vexera's voice became even quieter. "Any probe that gets within 50 light-years of these structures is immediately destroyed by automated defense systems. The technology appears to be far beyond anything in our databases." The chamber erupted in frightened chatter. If humans could build defenses that advanced, what else were they capable of? Dr. Zethera of the Ethereal Collective had been working around the clock analyzing intercepted communications. Her findings were perhaps the most terrifying of all. "Council members," she began, her ethereal voice barely audible, "we have detected communication patterns between these rim installations and other locations." "What other locations?" Vexera leaned forward desperately. "The transmissions are being directed beyond our galaxy," Zethera explained, her bioluminescent patches dimming with fear. "The energy needed for such communications is enormous, far beyond what human technology should be able to produce. But the quantum signatures are definitely human in origin. The implications crashed over the assembly like a tsunami. The humans were not just hiding at the galaxy's edge. They were talking to something outside the galaxy entirely. Something powerful enough to help them build defenses that could destroy Council probes instantly. Engineer Corps Leader Flextar had spent weeks analyzing the human design systems that were failing across Council space. His findings challenged everything they thought they knew about human capabilities. "The technology we believe was primitive," he reported with obvious reluctance, "is actually highly advanced, but it has been simplified, deliberately made easy for our species to understand and use." He showed a detailed diagram of a human navigation processor that had been controlling their fleet movements for decades. This quantum computing core should be impossible to build with the manufacturing techniques they claim to use. Yet somehow they mass-produced thousands of them for our entire space network. "What are you saying?" Krex hissed, his scales darkening with anger and fear. "I am saying they were hiding their true technological level from us," Flextar replied. "Everything they shared with the Council, their science, their manufacturing, their systems, it was all dumbed down to our level of understanding." The chamber fell into shocked silence. If humans had been concealing their real capabilities for 47 years, what else had they hidden? What were they really capable of when they stopped pretending to be primitive? Ambassador Park Min-young of the Neutral Worlds, one of the few voices of reason left in the chaos, finally stood to address the panicked assembly. "Fellow council members," she said calmly, "perhaps we should ask ourselves a more basic question. If humanity was technologically superior to us all along, why did they join the council in the first place? Why did they spend 50 years pretending to be our inferiors, while secretly maintaining our entire civilization?" The question hung in the air like a death sentence. The answer, when it finally came, would prove more terrifying than any of them could possibly imagine. In the meantime, long-range sensors continued to detect the massive human constructions at the galaxy's edge, and mysterious transmissions to destinations beyond the stars grew stronger every day. Whatever the humans were preparing for, it was almost ready. The end came not with explosions or battles, but with a simple message that appeared on every screen across Council space at exactly the same moment. The transmission was calm, polite, and delivered in the same measured voice that had once made the Council think humans were boring and unremarkable. Ambassador Park Jin-ho appeared on billions of screens throughout the galaxy, but he was no longer sitting in a simple human meeting room. Behind him, through massive windows, the Council representatives could see ships that made no sense. Crystalline structures the size of small moons, geometric forms that seemed to bend space itself around them. Honored members of the Galactic Council. Jin-ho began, his familiar face now carrying an expression of deep sadness. "I am speaking to you from the command ship of the Architect Fleet, currently positioned at the outer edge of your solar region. The words hit every council chamber like lightning. The architects were ancient legends, beings who had supposedly created life in the galaxy before disappearing into deep space millions of years ago. Most species considered them myths told to children. For the past year and a half, Jinho continued in his calm voice, "You have been asking where humanity went. The answer is simple. We returned to our real job as guides to the Architect Collective." Council leader Thexera felt her legs collapse as the meaning crashed into her mind. In assembly halls across the galaxy, representatives from dozens of species sat frozen in shock as everything they believed about galactic history crumbled around them. The Galactic Council was a test. Jinho explained with scientific precision. The Architect Collective has been watching your galaxy for thousands of years, waiting to see if your civilizations were ready to join the greater cosmic community. Humanity was sent to be your teachers and guides. The image shifted to show star maps beyond imagination, not just their galaxy, but thousands of others, each filled with thriving civilizations connected by networks of light that span the universe. The scale was so vast it hurt to think about. Our mission was to help your species develop, to share knowledge slowly and carefully, and to judge whether you were ready for contact with the collective. For 47 years, we gave you simplified versions of architect technology, hoping to see how you would use these gifts. Dr. Yang Haijin appeared beside Jinho, but she had changed dramatically. Where once she had seemed like a brilliant but ordinary human scientist, she now wore robes of deep blue material that seemed to contain moving stars, and her eyes held depths that were clearly not entirely human anymore. "We watched you dismiss our help as primitive," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that human vocal cords should not have been able to produce. "We observed you treat us as an inferior species. We recorded your inability to understand that cooperation was more valuable than dominance." The transmission showed recorded footage from council sessions over the decades, moments when human suggestions were laughed at, when human technology was called crude, when human representatives were ignored or dismissed. Each clip was time-stamped and filed with scientific precision. "The test period has ended," Jinho announced. "Your civilizations have been judged inadequate for voluntary membership in the collective." From beyond the viewport behind him, shapes began emerging from space itself. Vessels that were not flying toward them, but materializing from dimensions that did not follow normal physics. The architect fleet was impossibly vast, stretching across light years of space like a living constellation. The collective has 3 standard procedures for civilizations that fail the integration assessment. Yang Haijin explained with terrifying calmness. Isolation until you evolve beyond your current limitations. Supervised development under direct architect management. Or complete dissolution and recycling of your genetic material for future experiments. She paused, letting the unspoken third option sink into the minds of every being listening across the galaxy. Due to the diversity of species in your council and your potential for eventual growth, the collective has chosen the second option. You will continue to exist, but under our direct guidance. Your military forces will be neutralized. Your governments will be restructured according to architect protocols. Your development will proceed under our supervision. Admiral Corks found his voice first, his insect body trembling with rage and terror. "This is conquest. This is invasion. This is education." Jinho corrected gently. "You will learn to cooperate instead of compete. You will learn to value wisdom over power, knowledge over control. You will learn because the alternative is significantly less pleasant." The transmission began to fade, but Jinho's final words reached every corner of council space. "Humanity offered you friendship and partnership. The architects offer you survival and guidance. We suggest you accept gracefully." As the screens went dark, the real horror began to settle in. Across the galaxy, architect vessels were already taking positions around major population centers. The transition would be gentle, but absolute, in the council chambers. Thexera looked around at her fellow representatives with crushing understanding. They had spent 47 years believing they were superior to humanity, never realizing they were being tested, never understanding that their humble, helpful human colleagues were actually representatives of beings so advanced that their technology seemed like magic. The bitter irony was overwhelming. Humanity had tried to prepare them for a greater destiny among the stars. Instead, the Council had chosen arrogance over wisdom, dominance over cooperation. They had failed their tests so completely that their teachers had been forced to call in the administrators. As architect ships began their final approach to Council worlds, one last message reached the Assembly, not from the fleet but from Earth itself. We tried to show you a better path. We are sorry it had to end this way. The age of Council independence was over. The age of architect supervision had begun.